The operating room lights shone on my face, and Nelson recognized me instantly, even behind the mask. His handsome face, usually relaxed, now appeared more taut than usual, his lips slightly pursed. "I hope your hands are steady today, Dr. Bernard." "Of course," I replied, my neck stiffening in a show of solemn integrity. But as I turned away, my heart skipped wildly. Nelson had been my high school crush, always clad in white, his features fairer than snow. But after graduating from high school, he went abroad to study, and I hadn't seen him for many years. I never imagined that Aunt Liu's matchmaking setup would turn out to be him. In my excitement, I had accidentally spilled my coffee. Originally, I wasn't supposed to perform this surgery, Dr. Belle had been called away last minute, and I was her replacement. Now that I knew the patient was Nelson, I suddenly found it difficult to look directly at the surgical site. The surgery went smoothly, and after Nelson was moved to the ward, I carefully explained the post-operative care he needed to follow. Nelson stared blankly at the ceiling. After a long pause, he stiffly turned his neck and said hoarsely, "The matchmaker didn't tell me you were a proctologist. A doctor's heart is kind. Isn't it the same in any department?" I replied with an awkward smile, not having yet dared to tell my family that I'd been a professional in proctology for 7 years. Nelson turned his head away, and I tactfully left the room. Over the next few days, I avoided appearing in front of Nelson as much as possible, even staying at the back during ward rounds to let him forget my presence and avoid any awkward encounters. As I passed by the nurses' station, I overheard several nurses discussing Nelson and couldn't help but slow down and listen. "The patient in room V6 is really handsome. He's like the stoic type of heartthrob I adore." The guy in V5 screamed like he was being slaughtered the first time he used the bathroom post-surgery, but V6 didn't make a sound. "A real hero. Quick, check the schedule to see who's changing V6 dressings today. If it's me, let's agree not to fight over it." "You girls are daydreaming, Mrs. Partridge's voice cut through the nurse's fantasies. Perhaps it was my overly serious pace as I passed by, but she pointed at me and said, "See, only a flower of the proctology department like Dr. Bernard is worthy of a heartthrob like V6." I almost stumbled, but I maintained my composure and walked past without looking sideways. However, the chance to meet my once secret crush, who was also my arranged date, was a divine opportunity handed to me on a silver platter. How could I not seize it? Thus, on the day Nelson was discharged, I parked my car at the hospital entrance, having prepared a post-surgery cushion on the passenger seat specifically designed for him. Nelson glanced at the pink Peppa Pig cushion, thick and soft around the edges but hollow in the middle, to avoid discomfort at the surgical site. I sensed Nelson internally struggling for a few seconds before he expressionlessly sat down on it. During Nelson's hospital stay, I reached out to the matchmaker again to learn more about him. He and his parents had returned to settle in China, and he had just accepted a senior management offer from a bank. The arranged meeting was set up by his mother, and after confirming me as the chosen person, his parents happily went on a trip. As I drove Nelson home, I carried bags full of essentials like pure milk, fruits, and green vegetables, and I specially reminded him to adjust his lifestyle to include a light diet and to avoid smoking and alcohol. I chattered away, and Nelson merely lifted his eyebrows slightly and asked, "Dr. Bernard, do you have a lot of free time?" My face stiffened, but I still forced a smile and said, "Well, we're old classmates, and I thought I'd take extra good care of you. City C has changed a lot. If you want to explore, I could be your guide." Nelson gave me a look that seemed almost like a smile, but his gaze held an electric charge that made me feel all tingly and weak, barely managing to steady myself against a nearby table. Nelson, once cold as mountain snow in his youth, now carried a mature, restrained allure that immediately recaptured my once fluttering teenage heart.